We're bringing you more reaction now to our breaking news this hour that the former United States Secretary of State Henry Kissinger has died at the age of 100. Joining us live is James Morrow, host of the US Report. James, appreciate your time. Kissinger, of course, a giant in the Nixon and Ford years, but he continued as a powerful voice on foreign affairs throughout his lifetime.
Well, indeed, in fact, he was a powerful voice even before he joined the Nixon and Ford administrations. You know, Henry Kissinger is a fascinating character because he's somebody who was shaped by history and then went on to shape history. You know, the important thing to remember about Henry Kissinger is that he was born, obviously, in 1923. We know that because he just died at the age of 100. But he was born in Germany, and his family escaped Germany, being a Jewish family, and they went to the United States. And I think 1938, he saw the rise of totalitarianism. He saw the rise of Nazism firsthand. And then, after he turned 18, when the war started, he joined the U.S. Army, and I think in 43, 44, served in Europe. And he saw the aftermath of the Nazi regime and what happened in the time thereafter. This profoundly shaped his outlook, which he then developed further as a Harvard professor, and then eventually, you know, of course, winding up to rise to the lofty heights of both National Security Advisor and Secretary of State. And, you know, it's interesting because there was a lot of talk. You know, people said, gosh, he'd make a fascinating, great president at that time, but he wasn't able to because he failed the one test of not having been born in the United States of America. So his legacy, I think you have to go back to that early story. He's one of those figures where you really do have to go back to that early story to understand why he became the figure he did.
Diplomacy, as we know, is tricky, and Kissinger's really held up as somebody who, I think John Kerry said he wrote the book on diplomacy. He really is just such a giant in that world. What was it about his approach that enabled him to cut through like he did?
Yeah, look, I mean, a lot of things. Number one, I think he had just a very deep knowledge of history and the nation-state system and how it worked. You know, all those years at Harvard, he was, studying very deeply about how states worked with one another, how history worked. So this led to a number of great diplomatic triumphs. People say the ending of the Yom Kippur War, when the West was caught flat-footed, when Israel was attacked by its neighbors. Some resonance today, obviously, in that. Also, of course, the opening to China. And there's some revisionist talk now about people say, well, you know, was Kissinger too taken in by China, or was too much credit given to China in the need to balance the Soviet Union? Because, of course, that was the great game that was going on back then that allowed this totalitarian nation to become such a powerful rival to the United States now. And, of course, the ending of the Vietnam War, for which he won the Nobel Prize.
James Morrow, always appreciate your analysis. Thanks for joining us.
Anytime.